Elvis gave her Desiree.
Why was my video off?
Who knows?
The spirit of Elvis. That is today's, well, when we're ready.
We
I
are
just
ready.
heard your whole reading of boy, was that a wild chapter.
The latest one?
Yeah, I'm ready to talk. You ready to fire us up?
Yeah, we are recorded.
Okay.
I hit the recording so we'd capture it from the very beginning, except
That
for
last chapter you read, boy, did that make me squirm. Elvis was trying to weasel his way out of trouble. Any man hearing that can relate, right?
yeah.
Man, oh man. That was, I don't even remember writing all that, and it still gave me the creeps.
Well,
Poor Elvis,
it's been how long now?
40 years.
Yeah, that 37 years, almost 40 years.
Yeah, for about 40 years. But whoo, I could feel for him. He was pinned to the wall and trying to. I was talking to one of the editors in the book that knows almost as much about it as me, and she's saying, "Yeah, Elvis was a weasel." He's trying to, and Lucy was crazy, so she was, giving her opinion.
Yeah,
But
well,
women can
the thing
understand.
is,
But we'll get to that in a minute. I
yeah,
don't want to rip on Elvis. I know they're fans here, but it was just amusing. I think most of the people are women, but any men hearing him saying, "Man, been there."
yeah. I mean, I think that once again that Lucy had said no so many times when Elvis wanted her to come along in the 50s, in the 60s, in the early 70s, that it was a little shocking to me that she said she would come to him and he said no. Um, but at the same time, I mean, he probably at his worst look, his worst weight, his worst health. And I'm sure he didn't want Lucy there. And instead of saying it because of the pride, he didn't say, he left it unsaid. And she assumed obviously it was because of, Ginger Alden, or because of, who's the Sheila Ryan.
Yeah.
Um, well, hey, what's your opening statement? I know you
Okay,
said you had a zinger.
opening. This is going to be a mind blower. And boy, the naysayers are going to go nuts. But ever see this book?
The Lost
I don't
Life,
know.
The Last Life on Earth Through My Eyes. No, I have not.
You have this book by a Canadian psychic purports to be Elvis's own autobiography channeled to this psychic from the beyond.
Okay.
And the important part of it for us is about 80-90% of the book is a redo of Are You Lonesome Tonight? It's all about Elvis, Lucy, Elvis, consulting Lucy, stuff taken from Are You Lonesome Tonight, published in Ottawa and distributed in Georgia. It's My Last Life on Earth Through My Eyes, Elvis Presley. Now, I'm not vouching for it, but Elvis was deeply involved in the paranormal. He believed in it. He says he saw UFO or was channeling one when he was 8 years old. And he believed in the paranormal and spiritual and all that. But the fascinating part about this book is this psychic, I think her name is Grace Pearl. Uh, this psychic could have picked any of the 100 Elvis books, could have picked Elvis and Me to pilfer from, or from Priscilla, any of the other books. And she chose, of all the books in the world, to have Elvis obsess over Are You Lonesome Tonight and Lucy. She even added scenes from then. So I found that fascinating. And the woman sent it to me, or her publisher. She
Okay.
being a psychic, she probably knew I wouldn't be mad or sue her. I'd kind of be, wow, this is interesting. I mean, usually when you plagiarize someone's book, you don't want them to know, but she sent it right to me. But it's a fascinating fact. You may want to read this. I mean, it's Elvis's own words channeled. Now, the naysayers are going to say I'm crazy, but I'm reminding again, Elvis did believe I bet if Elvis would have loved the X-Files, the TV show, because he
Hmm.
was deeply involved in that. And who knows? I mean, I have written books, subsequent books on the paranormal. I wrote a book called Childlight, which is how children who died contact their mothers from the beyond to reassure them. I had 54 stories of that, of children coming back. I know this is crazy, and
Hey, no, I'm listening here. I mean,
people are going to think people are really going to think I'm crazy. But I didn't write this book. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't know anything about it until it was sent to me. And, it's fascinating. And it was, according to this psychic, Elvis is up in heaven and he's upset if people don't believe in Lucy and the story. And apparently, Are You Lonesome Tonight, according to her, is Elvis's favorite book. He's read it multiple times. So, you
huh.
know, and the fact that Elvis himself would have believed in this kind of stuff, then the naysayers can't just write it off. And I'm not saying that proves it, but the important part from my perspective is she could have chose any book in the world on Elvis to parrot and use segments and design her whole book over. And she chose Are You Lonesome Tonight? It obviously affected her deeply, the psychic. So that's one of them. Now, another thing that I may want you to sing is in one of the chat rooms for one of the comment sections on your stories. We were talking about the Bobby Gentry song, Ode to Billy Joe. You know that song well. You may have sung it. But and that what is that about? A secret love affair in the South that was
Mhm.
tragic. And they made a movie. Max Baer made the movie, not Max, Jethro, his son, the boxer's son who played Jethro, Beverly Hillbillies. He produced the movie to the song, which was very popular. And it mirrored the Elvis and Lucy story in many ways. They even talked, and the song even talks about Tupelo, the
Hmm.
Bobby Gentry Ode to Billy Joe. So you may want to sing that now. You ever sung that one?
I
A
haven't.
male version?
No, I mean, I'm, obviously, in Nashville playing guitar for years, and all my girlfriends in the past that were singers sang it, and my wife's not crazy about that song, but somebody requested her to sing it maybe 6 months ago, and she sang it for the first time.
Well,
So
have your wife sing it and
yeah.
get back in the game and on the video. It's a beautiful, powerful song. And the movie, the movie was way ahead of its time because I don't know, have you ever seen the
I have
movie?
not. No.
The In the movie, the reason Billy Joe jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge is because he was in love with the woman, but he was gay. He found out he was gay,
Hmm.
and because of some incident in a brothel, and he couldn't live with destroying her, even though she said she could change him and all that. So that it's kind of a modern tale. I don't know why the song doesn't intimate that, but the movie played that up big, way back in time.
Interesting.
So
It
that
might it might
was,
have been a behind the scenes for the songwriter saying, "Hey, this is the backstory,"
yeah.
why it was possibly.
And they were throwing something off the Tallahatchie Bridge, and they always, through history, thought it was the engagement ring when he was admitting to her that he was gay and they couldn't be married. And no one knew they had a relationship, not her family, not the town, nobody, just that the preacher saw him up on the bridge. But then in the movie, it was a Raggedy Ann doll they threw off the bridge. And they said it was her symbolizing she's leaving her childhood. She was 15. Lucy was 16, I think, when she met Elvis. And the woman in Ode to Billy Joe, I don't know what her name was. Was it Bobby too?
Bobby Joe maybe or
No, his name was Billy Joe. So anyway, some of the commenter will say, but I found that fascinating. If you read the lyrics, and they even mentioned Tupelo, so that was a reference to Elvis in the movie and his life. So the
yeah.
two fascinating things. But and I'll be interested in the comments going back to the paranormal that why not if Elvis is looking down and seeing all the hate preyed on Lucy and Desiree and he knows the truth, why not contact a psychic who's trying to channel him in Canada? Yeah, I know
Yeah.
the,
I mean,
the
who
haters
knows?
are going to hate.
I'll take a
What?
look. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of folks on the channel that say, "Hey, get that book, read it. Let's see what it's all about."
Yeah,
Um,
that could be your next one because it's all Elvis talking. And it's taken from Are You Lonesome Tonight? So she's channeling the book and apparently Elvis. So it might be fascinating. Paranormal stuff as our human development grows and grows, you're seeing more incidences of the paranormal. And Elvis was fascinated by UFOs and the ability to channel and what is it called? Telepathic
mhm.
communication. Elvis was into all that stuff. So you can't deny me. And Elvis would be here himself talking like I am and saying, "Hey, you don't know."
Yeah, and Billy Stanley, he recounted a near death experience where he was dead. Billy Stanley, Elvis's stepbrother.
Yeah.
He died. He went to heaven. He met with Elvis, and Elvis told him it wasn't his time to go to, and he gave a message to Elvis fans. So
Wow. Yeah.
it's not the only time that we've heard the potential that Elvis had sent a message from beyond. Um,
Oh, and I just remembered Elvis often went to a favorite place by a creek to talk to his twin brother Jesse, who died at birth. He was always talking to Jesse. So it
yeah,
all fits.
and
Talking to Jesse, and the naysayers want to rip me, rip Elvis himself for talking to Jesse and talking to space aliens and communicating with them when he's 8. And I think he probably thinks his ability and his power might have been paranormal. He
well,
was a he
a
was
lot of the
not
books
a
that I've
normal human being. We know that. He
yeah,
was the king. He
well,
was almost
not
like
just
an
that, but
alien himself.
everybody, a lot of people that were with him said that Elvis could heal with his hands. Not just believed that he could heal with his hands, but that he healed people, that he
Right.
healed them, and he was frustrated that he couldn't heal himself because you can't heal yourself in a sense. And of course, we know Elvis he just was taking too many prescription medications, too many health issues. Some of the medications were causing the health issues. Some of them were keeping him alive longer, for sure. And I, reading that chapter, Lucy was very frustrated about the Elvis's inability to stop taking medicines or injections. But almost everybody else, even the doctors that had studied him, said, that medicine, in a sense, kept him alive even longer than he would have because of all of his health issues. It helps and hurts. You know,
Also, also, I'm sure the medications that put him in an alternative mental state probably got him closer to the spiritual world. It fired up whatever is in our brains that we're connected, and he was preparing for the afterlife. All those prescription drugs and all that were preparing him to go to the light, as they say, and go into the afterlife. Now, Lucy, to remind people, there was none of that talk with her and all that. She was just down to earth Texas woman who was jealous because he had had Ginger, another look-alike. And I noticed in you're reading the chapter, he wasn't trying to use that excuse anymore. Remember in the early days, he was using Priscilla was just like Lucy, and he
yes,
made Priscilla look like Lucy. I've seen other pictures. Man, Priscilla's hair was like a mile high. That wasn't Priscilla at all. But he always used that excuse. She looks like you. She reminded me of you. He didn't try that anymore. She probably had enough of that, as any woman would. Enough of that. She looks like me. Didn't take me, right?
right. Yeah, and of course that's like you said, squirming when you're reading it. Elvis. I mean, she offered to go to Elvis, and Elvis basically said no and made an excuse that the same excuse that he'd used before, that he didn't want the colonel to ruin the relationship. He didn't want, but the truth of the matter is, this was late '76. Elvis was at his worst health, his worst weight. He dropped some weight when he went to Hawaii. but then he went on the road and he gained the weight, the water weight, all the health stuff that was going on.
Yeah.
And I think it was a
Oh,
more of a pride thing. Like when Lucy saw him in 73 and I think 75 as well, Elvis wasn't at his worst weight, his worst health. And I think that as a man, I know that you would think, okay, she's not going to love me if she sees me, because I saw the look in her eye last time that she was worried about me, and how he was bloated and stuff, and they still kissed and made love and stuff like that. But I think that Elvis was kind of scared. He'd already gotten rid of Red West, Sonny West, Dave Hebler,
yeah, he was
Linda
all
Thompson
messed
was
up,
gone, Sheila
all
Wright
messed
was
up.
gone. Yeah,
And that captures it. And it gets even worse in the farther chapters. I mean, you see him. I think he even knew he was short for this life and he was ready to transition. And,
yeah.
but I don't know, Lucy, he was still there. She was still there for him. She was the one woman at the very end that, as he was transitioning, like I say, and using all the drugs and getting prepared he probably knew he was short.
Well, he did, and the thing is, we've read a lot of different books, and um, you probably haven't read it. It's a very rare, low print book, but the Elvis and Kathy book that we just read, she was with him all the time. In fact, Ginger Alden got sent home so Kathy could kind of stay with Elvis, and he was talking about how he was dying. He knew he was dying, like
Yeah.
really, and he didn't think he was going to make it any older than his mother, who died on August 14th. He thought 42. He always said 42. His mom died at 46, but for Elvis's mind, his mom died at 42. Elvis died at 42, 2 days after his mother died.
Right.
So Elvis, like you said, he knew he was dying. And when you do take prescription medicine or any sort of drugs, look at the Beatles. Look at how creative they got, how they got out of their own mind
Yeah.
and wrote some songs that were amazing melodies, harmonies.
Yeah.
You know,
Sergeant Pepper on LSD. Oh, something else that struck me in your reading. It's funny as I'm going by your reading of the book I wrote, but it was so long ago. It's fresh to me. Is I marveled again at how close Lucy was to Elvis in Graceland near the end there, because she's talking about calling Graceland, getting put through. I think she said she met Vernon or spoke to Vernon on the
she
phone.
called Vernon. She called Vernon often.
Yeah, she called his father. She called Vester. Vester probably was screening the calls, and she met Vester in person. So by that point, no, it's funny. The funny thing is, at the beginning of his life, she knew him real well in person, and they could be out in public without anybody bothering them because Elvis wasn't famous. And then near the end of the life, she was more and more, and all those people who deny it, wow, they had to have, there was a story when the book came out that there was a big meeting at Elvis Presley Enterprises about how we're going to deal with this book, and they set guidelines and they told everybody to deny it. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure people were saying, "Yeah, I know Lucy. I talked to her on the phone." But they had this big war room meeting on how to deal because as I learned through you, they had gone through like 6 years of a legal claim against the estate from somebody. So they didn't want to go through that again. So they had this big, and they had learned what not to do from their attorneys. So I'm sure the word was out. Do not omit anything. If you ever
Right.
talked to Lucy, if you met Lucy, if you knew about the relationship, Elvis told you. I mean, he said it. Plus, I got to see the John O'Grady thing that you read recently. See, I had remembered in the back of my mind that I had talked to John O'Grady at length. And then you just read my quoting him in the narrative passage of the book. He was angry
Yes.
at how Colonel Parker drove Elvis to death when he was sick and overweight and kept putting him in small towns, trying to hide him from the media, silly, and all that. And John O'Grady, I mean, and I think Lucy talked to John O'Grady multiple times, right? Didn't you read
I
that?
don't know about that part, but I know that obviously that
Well,
Lucy.
you have a video up about John O'Grady and all that. So
Yeah,
I
well, John O'Grady obviously tried to get he tried to get Elvis help, tried to get him in a detox unit, and he asked Charlie Hodge to help. He also asked Priscilla Presley. Priscilla Presley said, "There's nothing I can do." That's what was quoted. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
Charlie did go to Elvis and mention something, and then John O'Grady said he got a call from Elvis that said, I'm fine. In Tahoe, it was just the elevation. I was having trouble breathing. Stay out of it." So he basically told John O'Grady to stay out of it. And of course, during this time, Lucy was continuing to say, "Hey, you need to stop doing it, get some help." Um, so that's the connection there between O'Grady and Lucy. They were both at the same time.
Well, and you got to remember, John O'Grady did the lie detector
Yep.
where Elvis mentioned one woman's name in the whole world when they were trying to grill him about having affairs. And
Yes.
that's the only time he just must have panicked because he thought that if he tried to deny and hide his relationship with Lucy while wired up, the needle would start flying all over.
Right.
So he spit out her name. Yeah, there is. I mean, Charlie Hodge said that. He mentioned a Desiree and
Right.
that. So that cleared Elvis's mind so he could take the lie detector test without having that body language and whatever the lie detectors focus on. Because
Right.
the lie detector is an in and act science.
Yeah, it's the stress part of it.
Yeah.
It's like the stress analyzer test kind of thing, but it's a little different.
Yeah, and if Elvis had that in the back of his mind about this big secret, and he's on a lie detector test trying to see how truthful he is, and if he's got any secrets, so he just blurted it out. So I think Lucy uh, knew that John O'Grady knew about her. So if they didn't communicate, I certainly communicated with him.
Right.
I remember, I think he told me, yeah, he knew about Lucy and he knew about the lie detector test. And you just read the quote, and that was
Yeah.
me quoting him from our interview.
Right. And the funny thing was Charlie Hodge was trying to use it as an excuse that there's no way there would be another
Right.
wolf out there, and
Because they thought it was the daughters. It was
right.
Lucy's nickname, and she named Desiree after her pet name from Elvis from the Marlon Brando movie. And
Yeah.
Marlon Brando married the other Elvis' supposed daughter. So it's all tied, so many threads tied in together. Like
So let's
Desiree and Lisa Marie living 10, 15 minutes apart all their lives, going to the same Target store,
mhm.
shopping at the same Target store, and Lisa Marie recognizing Desiree in the store, not the other. Well, I guess Desiree recognized her, but the fact that Lisa 30 years later recognized Desiree like she was a unicorn. And the husband followed her around. We already went over that because they
Yeah.
were so fascinated with this creature they had heard so much about.
So let's talk about Desiree for a second. So in this chapter, I mean, this is the second time something dangerous and bad has happened to Desiree. First she gets almost completely assaulted in the physical way,
Right.
RAPE, and then she gets in a car accident to where her face is scraped across the pavement, her chest is burned, her arm is burned, and she's in the hospital. This is right around the same time that, in a sense, Elvis would have needed Lucy. But Lucy was there for Desiree and very distracted, very upset at all the stuff
Right.
going on in the Elvis world. And Lucy at that point in time didn't have the patience, in a sense, to deal with it. She just wasn't calling Elvis back, not talking to him at that point in time because her focus was on Desiree. But did they share much about that experience? About, did she have to have facial reconstruction surgery? Did she? How long was she in a hospital? Did they share anything about that with you?
Oh, of course. Desiree showed me the scars and all that from the accident.
Tell
And
us about
remember,
it. Tell us about it.
this was like 10 years before Are You Lonesome Tonight? Some people claim that she had the plastic surgery to look like Elvis. She just had scars. She just had her nose fixed back to the way it was, not different, and scars on her face erased, but nothing to change her. I mean, it was a horrible accident. There was nothing. I mean, so many, and she showed me the scars that she had from the accident. So, that was silly, people claiming she had plastic surgery. I wrote a book about John Dillinger, one
Mhm.
of my recent books about the 1930s bank robber who was like the biggest star in America as a bank robber in the 1930s. And he famously had plastic surgery in the 30s without anesthesia.
Eh,
There was no anesthesia. The doctor, some quack drunk doctor, cut up John Dillinger's face just to change his look. So the FBI, he was the first ever most wanted on the most wanted list. They created it for him. So he was the first ever, what do they call it? I wrote the book. Anyway, uh, so he did try to change his looks, but Desiree didn't. She just wanted to look the way she did. She was already beautiful woman. They just put her back to normal.
Yeah,
The
she would have
whole,
been 19 at the time, 18 or 19, one of those two. I think it was
yeah,
76 or 77 that this
yeah.
happened. Hey,
So
and
very
somebody else,
dramatic chapter, man. Elvis is breaking down. Desiree is all in the hospital. And Lucy's such a good mother, just spending all that time with her and being so upset about Desiree. She'd be the same for any of her children, not just because that was Elvis's child.
so as I was reading, not this last reading, but the reading before, and Denise, Denise, her sister, knew that it was Elvis that was the father, and said it wasn't her place to tell Desiree that. Desiree had said that a friend of Lucy's mother called her and told her this. And while I'm reading it, I'm kind of speculating, going, it just doesn't feel right there. I feel like a sister would probably say, "Hey, guess what? I don't want to keep this from you. I don't know why mom's keeping it from you, but your dad is Elvis." Now, I speculated that, and then somebody said, "Hey, I watched the Phil Donahue interview, and Desiree did say that it was Denise that told her that her, once again, probably trying to protect her sister, but they said that Denise is the one that told Desiree that Elvis is your father when Desiree was 17, causing Desiree to take off, go to LA, be mad at Lucy. So I just thought it was interesting. I mean, I know you
Yeah.
wrote the book. You wrote the book before they went on the Phil Donahue show. So I don't know whether you remember that or not. I have not watched it to fact check what she said, but she said that it was Denise that told her, not Lucy's friend.
Well, there was a scene where they plastered her room with pictures of Elvis.
Yes,
So
early
that
on,
had to
yes.
be the sisters trying to, and then they said she looked like her. And she got upset because they said you and Elvis have the same nose. And it upset Desiree, I think, was 12, 13 then. And
Mm-hmm.
she was upset that she had a man's nose, sisters teaching her. One of the commenters was pretty funny because she said that made her really she related to that part because she said she'd have done the same thing. She'd have hid behind the door to listen to her mother talk because they said Denise was 14 and she was liking boys and she's hearing her mother in this relationship. The other kids were scared to get their mom mad at them, but Denise hid and listened to the conversations and
Right.
she would answer the phone and she knew it was Elvis. Now, when she
I'm,
told Desiree, I'm probably said, "Who do you think was calling your mom all these years? This John Jones. What are we doing?"
I'm sharing something. Can you
Oh, okay.
can you see the screen?
Yeah, it's
All right,
very
so
small.
it is okay. I'm gonna scroll in here. So Sandy Kirkendall has been sending me a lot of stuff. She's done a lot of research on Lucy, a lot of
Uh,
research on Lucy's sisters, Mary. But she found something that I don't know whether you knew about, but Mary, her sister, the same one that was cut in the grass, that Elvis was cutting her grass, that
right,
lived in Memphis in '53, actually started a like a square dance hall. And in the article, Lucy, singer Lucy DeBarban, and she was square dance. She was singing at the square dance. Um, so we've all heard about Lucy being a singer, but people are like, "Oh, this is so fantastical." Obviously, she's a dancer, she's a singer. She was with Elvis, she was with John Wayne. But here's just some verification that she was a singer and she sang at this square dance thing for her sister.
oh yeah, I see that. Wow, what paper
This
is
was the
this?
town, the town talk, Alexandria, Louisiana.
Oh,
So
it's Alexandria. It's not Memphis.
no,
Oh, it's
Alexandria.
Alexandria. You got
Yeah,
to
but
send me that article.
I will. I'm going to pull a few more things up because this is stuff that would be great for really for Lucy's sister and family. So these are all the things that she pulled up. She pulled up the memorial for Mary when she passed away. It looks like died in 2008. This is the marriage certificate of Mary, and and there's a birth certificate of the son that was born right across the border in Shelby County. So because people were saying, hey, she didn't even live there. That there was a lot of people saying Mary did not live there. There's no way that Elvis could have cut her grass. And she went through and found all this research on, basically on Mary being there in Memphis. And she's done a lot of research. I'll send it all to you.
So did they find out she did live in Memphis?
She did, yes.
Yeah, see?
And then you got W.D. Ware, the man. They
And we
found
found out Elvis had a lawn mowing business.
yes.
This is her house?
This was the house, yeah,
Oh,
that W.D. Dixie Ware and his first wife, Tommy Aceta, lived. Remember
Oh.
we talked about him having another wife somewhere else?
Yeah.
Well, that was their first house that before he married Lucy. So she just found a lot of research. She's done a great job pulling stuff up. Jack Greer, his store. So there's advertisements. Greer Sportswear opens in city. And so it talks about Lucy Ware, Miss Lucy Ware, who has more than 10 years experience buying and selling. So prior to getting married, here's advertisements, of the Greer store.
And
Free
he
gifts.
did that. He was in the car business, so he did that all for Lucy.
He was something. He was, I don't know whether
Look
he
at
was car
Lucy
business.
Ware manager. Wow, this is
Yes.
I didn't know about all this stuff.
And this would be stuff that I'm going to forward to Desiree when she sends me her email, because this is stuff that I know, when you lose a parent, when you know very little about a parent, because Lucy was fairly secretive, even
Very,
with her children, they all
extremely.
said. And so these are all things that I think they would bring some healing to Desiree to see some of the stuff. Um,
Yeah, I don't even know if Desiree has seen all this stuff.
Probably not.
Desiree, if you're watching this, email me. This is fantastic stuff.
This would have
You
been the
probably
whole,
lived it. You knew your mom was in the fashion industry and sang. She was a good performer. I saw her sing. She sang very well.
yep,
She could have been a star herself. She wasn't pretty baby like Brooke Shields in that movie. It
yep.
was Larry Parker.
So
She
this
mentions
here,
him.
Walter Melson. Remember the guy that had the limousine that gave her money that followed her? That's Walter Melson. So she found some radio executive beaten, robbed. Walter Melson of Wardville. So you know these are all little things that when we went to the book, I said, hey, everybody, send me information. Look into this. Find this person, John Wayne in Alexandria. All these great little articles and links that kind of obviously
That's
you
amazing.
researched it, yeah.
And that Walter guy, he wanted to marry her, and he knew about her relationship with Elvis. He mentioned that Elvis was a cad and a celebrity and had all these other women. He was trying to diss Elvis, and it upset Lucy. So
Yeah.
apparently, so many people knew about all this. Look
Yep.
at all this. This is fascinating. This is
Yeah.
your doozy.
Well, you know what?
My doozy was paranormal.
Right.
Yours was realistic
Well,
proof.
not just that, but here we go. So we've been talking about the purple suit on my other channel, Dary. I just loaded I loaded Edgel Bud Crow talking for about 41 minutes, and he, of course, he talked about Elvis coming into the White House wearing a purple suit. So I've got a video I just loaded, but then you've got Clint Hill. Now, Clint Hill was a special agent there at the White House. And this is the stuff. There's a lot of naysayers on Facebook, as you've seen. And I keep giving them all these links to these articles, and they keep saying all these people are lying, you
Yeah,
know.
I
But
know. The whole world's lying. It's
yeah, but
why are they lying? Did they have a motive for why all these people so they could support my book
I don't
and
know. And
Lucy?
that's
Why
what
are
I
they
said.
lying?
I said Dary and Lucy are so powerful that their power goes all the way to the White House. It goes
Right.
all the way to Richard Nixon, But right here, the king wore a purple velvet suit, a massive gold buckle, and so this is from Clint Hill, and then we've got Bud Crow, and then I don't have it here, but I linked an article to this lady of President Nixon's daughter talking about Elvis having a purple suit as well. So it's
There's the letter.
yeah, right here,
They
yeah.
have Hey, I don't know if you've looked at that letter
I have.
closely, but you'll find one or two T's, the letter T,
Hmm.
that Elvis whipped out in a way that's almost impossible to copy, very flamboyantly. Not He didn't do it all the time. I know if you look or people studying it, look for that T that he wrote in that letter that's all flamboyant and I think he was thinking of his T, taking care of business thing.
Sure.
So he did that occasionally. The T, almost impossible, even if you're a good forger, it would be impossible. It would be hard to make that T. And that same T is in the poem Elvis sent Lucy, but not every T. I think it's just one of the T's in the poem that he sent Lucy is that same exact, very flamboyant, whipped around crossing, and it's all there. And that was one of the things Charles Hamilton noted that Elvis did that T. And before Are You Lonesome Tonight and Charles Hamilton, nobody knew. Nobody knew about that. I mean, if you read the whole letter, you didn't notice it, right?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Nobody. But at the time, I was studying. I was a amateur graphologist, or however that is, and I was studying. When I got the poem, I was studying the letter to the president, and then I saw that T, and I said, "Oh man, there it is. There's the proof. One letter." And all the handwriting, the experts prove, but the one letter, that one T just sealed the deal. And people will say, well, hi, I knew about it, and then you copied it. But the poem was on old paper. It's just crazy. But
Well, and the
you'll look,
thing is, and that's what drives me a little crazy. Like I want people to look for holes. I mean, I'm all about that because if people look for holes and then you fill the holes, then you've convinced somebody. But if people just have some opinion and they want to say that Bud Crow doesn't know what he's talking about, that that Clint Hill at the White House didn't know what he's talking about the
yeah,
civil suit, or that Charles Hamilton doesn't know what he's talking. Charles Hamilton, they said, looked at maybe 2 million documents, and he was wrong twice out of 2 million documents. And the one that he was
yeah,
wrong about was something he said, hey, it was a bad photocopy that was sent to me, and it was wrong. But the thing
yeah.
is, if you're right 1.999.998 million times, if you're right that many times and wrong twice, but people want to go, oh, he was wrong that time. But this guy was that was this guy
He
was
was
so
an
rich.
expert.
He
He
was an
was an
expert.
expert
Yes.
on Elvis. And he was able to, a thing that throws some people up, again, bizarrely, is Elvis is kind of manic on the airplane writing the letter to the president, and he's just knocking it out, scribbling it. Now, the poem was a gift. So Elvis tried his best to write it really pretty, like a poem. He tried to do, there's graphology,
Mm-hmm.
pretty writing. So he changed his writing style to make it a pretty gift so she could frame it or something, and it was pretty. It wasn't him being manic on an airplane scribbling out a poem. He tried to make the poem pretty. So it is a little different, but the
Sure.
experts or even the smart people looking at it can see it's the same hand who did both. He's just trying to make it pretty for her because it was a gift
Right.
and it was historic. He probably knew at the time that major rock star who turned the poem into a song, the thing about that was that could be the only song Elvis ever wrote himself. That poem could be the one and only song Elvis, and that would be big in the media if the state lets him record it and release it. Maybe they'll eventually, but they,
And that's another thing I was looking into. Somebody sent me an email that said, hey, look into this. It's called Letters from Elvis. Now, I looked into it a little bit. It didn't seem like it had a much credence, but what I gleaned from it was that there were letters that Elvis Presley wrote. He didn't write a ton of them, but he wrote enough of them. He wrote letters to Anita Wood, you know, but there are letters that weren't allowed to be released because of the copyright law. It's a piece of of copyrightable material, that the estate will not let you release anything that Elvis did, because even if he gave it as a gift, he owned it. And since it's a poem, like you said, a poem is very much like a song.
Yeah,
And so I don't
exactly.
know. I don't until the estate might potentially recognize that, that Lucy and Elvis were lovers and that they had a love affair. I don't think they will allow it to be released, unfortunately.
And that rock star put a lot of time and effort into putting it to music. I mean, he's 3 Grammy Award winnings. And Desiree doesn't want me to mention his name. You always do, but 15 or 13 nominations. This isn't some slouch. This is a guy that was with David Lee Roth and Van Halen and his band for a long time. All the Grammy Awards, and he's been just shut down,
Yeah. And
you
I
know.
think you'll
But
continue
you're
to see.
not, because yours is an original and yours is great. So I'm waiting to see that on the charts.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm kind of waiting to get the copyright back from DC. That's one of the first things you got to do before you release a song is
Yeah,
copyright.
I copyright my manuscript, so I know. That's
Yeah.
usually quick, though, isn't it?
Well, it's about a 2 week process.
You
I've
think
already
someone's going to steal it from you, really?
I'm trying to protect things. And once you stick it up, and this is why I have a YouTube channel. And so if somebody else loads it on their YouTube channel and tries to claim ownership, well, I've got a copyright I can send to YouTube so they don't try to shut my channel down
Wow.
or demon, all that stuff. Um, so
That's funny you go through that. When I was when people steal from my book, I see it in movies. I see it in The Godfather. I see it in The Sopranos. I see it in the Dillinger movie. They take word for word passages and events from my books, and I'm like kind of flattered. I'm not going to raise a stink or say anything because I use other books as research material, so I think it's all fine. There
sure.
was something that I just totally created in my John Dillinger book. And then I'm watching the Dillinger movie, and Johnny Depp is saying it in the movie word for word. And I'm saying, well, I kind of made that up.
Right.
That wasn't history. That was from my mind. And he's quoting that in the book. So I guess that happens. But hey, if they steal it, that means it's great and they want it and your ownership. But I hope you pursue that because it's a very,
I
very,
will.
I keep saying the title. I'm assuming that's the title. Elvis gave her Desiree.
Yeah, it's called
Is
it's
that the
probably
real title? I've always assumed from hearing it and being moved that that was the title.
yeah.
But
Well,
I haven't asked you what the title is.
it's going to be called Desiree.
Oh, just Desiree?
But I mean, I could always do Elvis gave her Desiree, because usually the very title of the song is the last line of a chorus. Almost 95% of the time, it's going to be the very last line of the chorus. So Elvis gave her Desiree, even though I saved that to the end of the song. It wasn't really
That's a
introduced.
great title, but I wonder if the state will clamp down on just using his name
I know, that's what I wonder too.
because this giant hit song Black Velvet never mentions Elvis or his
Yeah,
name. The estate would probably want the millions they made on that song, so they never mentioned it. The songwriter probably denies it's about Elvis, even though it's his whole life story.
yeah.
And it probably makes people think that again that he wore black
Well,
velvet to the
well, even
president.
even
But this,
Walking in Memphis doesn't mention the name Elvis. Pretty Little Thing, Waiting for the King, down in the
yeah,
jungle, but not Elvis.
exactly.
So
And Black Velvet is great, emotional, great song, great singer. Doesn't mention Elvis,
So
but
we'll see. And I've got a bunch of other songs too a whole record called "Songs of Elvis" that I'm going to be putting it out. And Elvis Presley Enterprises could try to shut me down. We'll find out. Hey, I want to read this real quick. This is an email that came through. We were talking about Priscilla earlier, and how he said, "Hey, she reminded me so much of you, which is why, I was attracted to her." We all know that Elvis tried to get Priscilla to learn how to speak French and wanted her to take French lessons because Lucy spoke
yeah,
French. So
and
somebody
that
sent me,
fascinated a guy from Tupelo, Mississippi and Memphis that she was so classy and could speak French.
Hmm.
That
So in
the
this email,
guys
right,
like that.
in this email here, it says, according to this French-speaking fan from Belgium, Elvis in 1974 could speak French, or at least he had enough mastery of the language to spontaneously produce a fairly complex full sentence in French with correct grammar, conjugation, and pronunciation, such as "Parlez-vous français?" Can you speak French? Now I can say that too. Apparently, the source of the information is this worldwide news, but this is the fan with Elvis that was from France. But it just made me kind of think about what she made them think about the part in the book where Priscilla was trying to take French lessons and stuff, probably to please Elvis because that really attracted him,
Yeah.
the whole French speaking of Lucy.
So many coincidences. And I didn't even know any of that. I wasn't a big Elvis fan. I hadn't read a single book about Elvis before I started doing Are You Lonesome Tonight and working on that. So that wasn't anything I knew in advance and had planned ahead to go find two people to back up my fantasy. I don't know who they blame for all this. Me, Lucy, Desiree. If it's a scam, who pulled this masterful worldwide scam off with so many connections now and so many. I mean, when Lucy said her sister lived in Memphis and Elvis mowed her lawn offhand, she didn't tell me that like proving it. She just mentioned it one day offhand.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why didn't you tell me this before? I'm halfway through the manuscript. I'm through those part years, and you didn't tell me he's mowing your sister's lawn. And now we know she did live close by in Memphis, and we know he had a little lawn mowing business. I think the money was wrong because when I mowed lawn, I got 50 cents. And they said
Well,
he charged $3
it
in
was
the
$4,
50s.
but the thing is,
That's a lot of money in
there was
the,
there was three other people that was with him, three friends, and they all had
yeah,
a mowing business. It had to be a month, $4 a month, so $1 a week. That makes some
right.
sense.
That makes
Um,
sense.
and I'm
Probably
gonna
each of them $1 because I remember 50 cents and it was a big southern yard. I worked myself to death for that 50 cents. And that
yeah.
was the 60s. That was in the 1960s.
So hey, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna keep showing this stuff. So here we go. Mary's sister, Lucy's sister Mary, her third baby boy was born July 8th, 1953 in Memphis. See attached birth announcement. So this would have been right around the time, a little bit after that, that Lucy went up to see her sister that just had the baby. She had a modeling assignment, and then she would have saw Elvis. But here's the little announcement here, July 8th, 1953. So, Sandy's done a wonderful job doing a ton of research. Like, it's amazing how much time she's put into this while we're reading the book. And I'm going to do some follow-up videos that feature every one of these, plus whatever. There's other folks that have been sharing some stuff as well. But I just thought
Where is she putting all this?
she sent it to me. She's sending it to me in an email. Sending it to me in an email. So
Oh,
we
she's
just
not in the comment section?
she's in there, here and there. She
Oh,
doesn't comment a ton. But
because I don't recall coming across her, maybe.
hey,
Well, I
I'm gonna
appreciate it, Sandy. That was, bro. I wish you were my researcher on the book. Or maybe if Desiree does her book one day, we can use all that. So,
hey,
Sandy,
I'm gonna stop recording real quick and restart immediately. Hold on. So
okay, I'm